All right, happy Wednesday, and I hopefully everyone is doing great. As I told you in my other videos that we've done, I usually have a guest with me, and for those of you who haven't been following me on Instagram, so this is my dog Skylar. She was a rescue dog, and ever since I got COVID or tested positive for COVID on Monday, she has not left my side. She's literally been sleeping outside of my office. So I guess they say every man's best friend is a dog, and this is this is my friend Skylar, the Pomeranian. She's probably in my office too because I'm not gonna say the words, but it's EAT pretty soon. So we'll put Skylar down, but we're gonna do a little video. Today, Wednesday. So hopefully everyone's doing good out there. I actually feel a lot better than I did on Monday. I've been sleeping in my office on an air mattress the last couple of nights because of the CDC ruling of the quarantine or isolation. I should get out of my isolation on tomorrow. I don't have any signs right now, no fever. I actually did a oxygen test earlier, and my oxygen levels were pretty high. And I'm not going to go into the whole COVID vaccination part of it, but a big reason why I wound up getting the test is because I have a son who has got asthma, so I'm considerate to that. I have two in-laws who are terminal, so I am considerate to that. I think it's important to be considerate to other people going through this. And I'm not going to speak for everyone out there, and everyone knows my stance on vaccination. But I will say this: it's funny when you put I put the message out on Monday, and mostly I would say 98% of it was positive. But there are people out there say, "Well, why'd you get vaccinated then if you still got COVID?" And I felt like saying like, "Well, why do you put a seatbelt on when you drive a car?" Like, it's preventive. Like, there's no guarantees that you're not going to get it. That's not what the label says or what the people say. It's that it's preventative. And so I say, instead of feeling 100% crappy, I felt 10% crappy. So it's a preventative measure. So enough with COVID, but I feel good. And it's funny when you're in this office where I am right now, you just come up with a lot of different projects. And we have the monster trade guide that's going to come out in mid-January, I think the 14th or 15th. So I've got about 14 or 15 teams done. We're going to talk about a couple teams, and I got a fun new project that hopefully we can launch next week, a video component that we're going to do once a week. I think people would really enjoy it. It's going to need a little bit of cooperation with some of my friends in each of the 30 teams. As far as from a front office standpoint, I think people would really like it. A little bit about what's going on. I mean, we've already got 87 officially signed COVID hardship cases. It's a lot. I know people out there are saying, should the league pause? Should we suspend the season? It's never going to happen unless really things go off the rails here. And I know if you're a fan in Toronto, after losing by almost 50 points the other night, in Detroit, and certainly Miami, where the Heat are, that game has been suspended against San Antonio tonight. You're thinking, like, how does the league roll out 7 or 8 players and allow this? And my message to you would be, there is a reason why the league shut down the G League, and there is a reason why they've enacted all these hardship rules where, as I've said, it's a major insurance policy for games not to be suspended. And I think the Heat situation in San Antonio is a little bit different. They're coming off a back-to-back. They land in San Antonio. Basically, they're trying to sign guys on the Spurs G League team, and they couldn't get it done. It's a challenging part of it. I think if Miami was playing, tomorrow, which is Thursday, then that game probably goes on. But I think when you're coming off a back-to-back and you've got guys that are in protocol, and you've got Jimmy Butler out, you've got players who are injured, it's a hard thing to pull off, and I think that's more of a one-off. I don't think that's more of a trend. We haven't had a suspension in, I think, over a week. That was the first one. And the league is trying to just kind of get through basically the next 2 weeks, excuse me, as far as what's going on. So that's a little bit about my perspective on, everything what's going on in the league. I don't think things are going to come to a pause because we've got 100 players available in the hardship pool. We've got the rules how they are right now as far as to be able to sign players. Yes, I get it. Some of these games are not appealing at all. I mean, do you think people want to sit through a 45-point loss if you're a Raptor fan watching basically three guys who are on their roster? And I get it from Toronto's front office saying, well, hey, what about us? Why isn't our game suspended? And we basically have, three guys on our roster and 5 hardship guys. There is a little bit of a slippery slope there as far as you canceling one game and kind of almost looking the other way with some of these other games here. So I get it from everybody's perspective, but there's no way in hell this league is going to pause unless, as I said, things really kind of come off the wheels really fall off here. So we've got, as I said, 87 players that have been signed. I think that number is probably will be closer to 100 by the time we get to Thursday. What's interesting is that January 7th is the guaranteed date for players under contract who are in non-guaranteed contracts. We've got 28 players who it affects, guys like Wayne Selden in New York, Matt Thomas in Chicago. And what's happening is that these players that are on these hardship exceptions, it's kind of giving them a new life. Like, I am the ultimate mush. I said it on Brian Windhorst's podcast regarding Greg Monroe. Like, I saw him in Vegas, and he was not very good. And then Monroe has played really good here. Do I think he has a chance of making the Minnesota lineup? I don't, based on where they are in the luxury tax and basically from a roster standpoint, leaving that open. But does that mean that doesn't open up something from Monroe somewhere else, or Stanley Johnson in LA? With the Lakers waive DeAndre Jordan, for example, who's on a guaranteed contract. But I think it's going to be interesting as far as what teams do with some of these non-guaranteed guys if they waive them to open up a spot for some of these players who are on these hardship exceptions. Devon Reed in Denver is a great example of a player who's earned a contract, but how do you find a roster spot? So keep an eye on January 7th. That is the date for guaranteed contracts. 28 players are impacted there. G League. So the G League has suspended the season until January 5th. I think that date is going to be pushed back. I've talked to multiple teams today. I think that gets pushed back to January 20th. That kind of aligns with the hardship rules here. I don't see, based on we're still in this pandemic when it comes to the rosters, I don't see that all of a sudden the G League going back into full effect. I don't think there's enough players in the G League right now. So I'm looking at January 19th, 20 from that perspective there. So that's the G League. Brooklyn. Kyrie. Kyrie is back out of health and safety protocols. I talked about it a couple weeks ago when the Nets decided to, welcome him back, I guess, as a part-time player. We did a little bit of that video, and the more I dive into it, and I don't want to pull the front office card, and I've seen a lot of criticism either in print and on TV about the Nets' decision. It's easy for me to say, well, you never worked in the front office. But you have to think about it from the perspective of Sean Marks and any of these teams that are in these 30 front office. The goal is to win games. That is the ultimate goal here. And Kyrie Irving gives the Nets the best opportunity to do so. I would rather them do it now, as far as bringing him back as a part-time player, than in mid-March or early April. And then maybe that really screws some things up. And he has come out and has said that he understands the consequences. He said it today after his media day. He's appreciative of being back. Let's see how this plays out. My big question here is, would the Nets have made the decision to bring Irving back if Harden, if they knew Harden and they knew Durant were going to be out for that extended period of time, because those two guys were well rested, and that was kind of the mindset, was basically they were running out of bodies and they needed Kyrie back. Well, now they're back at full strength. They had two great wins in LA. Harden is like, we thought James Harden we were about to kind of, bring him into a senior citizen retirement home. Harden has been tremendous in those two LA games. He looks like the James Harden of last year, and he looks like the James Harden of Houston. What would the Nets mindset be there? So it's kind of a little bit of Monday morning QB, but I'm interested to see how Irving is integrated. I don't think we see him back until probably mid-January on the court. The Nets have a road trip, I think, starting on January 17th to the 23rd. It's a 4-gamer. They've got 2 single games in Indiana and I believe in Chicago. I'd be surprised if we see him in any of those games. But, I mean, this Brooklyn team is dangerous with Harden playing at this level, with certainly Durant now back, and now you kind of integrate, you integrate Irving. Patty Mills has been off the charts. I mean, like, talk about one of the best signings at $6 million. And I understand the people out there saying the Nets caved. I've talked about it. People, we are in a business to win games. That is all people should care about. So that's my take on Brooklyn and as far as where we are right now. On the podcast with Brian Windhorst, we went really into a deep dive with the Lakers here, so I don't want to kind of give away the secrets to that podcast. But I wrote up their little trade guide, their section there, and I think the big thing is that they've got 2 big assets, Taylor Horton-Tucker and a 2027 first-round pick. What does that get them? Kendrick Nunn and Horton-Tucker gets you to around $19 million. I don't see a taker out there for Westbrook. Westbrook is interesting just because I think a lot of the criticism for Russell Westbrook right now that's been going on is basically kind of a little bit of a scapegoat for a roster that's not intact or maybe not put together the right way, where he's basically kind of standing on an island by himself. And certainly when you have Anthony Davis out and it's just basically you, LeBron, and a bunch of role players, people are judging you like a $40 million player, and they want him to be the 2015 version of Russell Westbrook. And I don't think we'll ever see that. Certainly when AD comes back and they're full and healthy, it gives you a little bit of a better idea. But if Russell Westbrook was making $15, $16 million, we'd be like, man, this guy's a great value. But because he's making $44 million, we're like, oh man, this is a bad contract. He doesn't fit. The Lakers are going to finish in the top 6. I mean, look at the Western Conference. They are going to finish in the top 6, and they will be judged by what they do in the playoffs. And for them, the next 40 games is almost like an extended, big preseason as far as trying to figure out what works. They're going to finish in the top 6. I'm telling you that. There's no doubt in my mind when I look at the Clippers and Dallas and some of those teams there. Denver, certainly. I mean, I think the 4 in the West with Memphis joining that group is kind of set, but they're going to finish in the top 6, and they're going to play probably Utah in the first round, and let's see where they are. But from a trade standpoint, I don't see anything big out there. I don't see. It's funny. I opened up my my DMs on Twitter, so people have been sending me these proposals, these Westbrook proposals. I don't see a Westbrook for Simmons trade. Daryl Morey had in Philly had Russell Westbrook before. I don't see that monster, so I'm looking at kind of those fringe moves. Are the Lakers willing to move a 2027 first when they know LeBron James is not going to be on the roster? And I went through LeBron's kind of track record from since he's gotten in the league. There's been 15 first-round picks that have been traded when he's been on the roster, whether it be in Cleveland, Miami, Cleveland, the Lakers. Those teams have traded out 15 first-round picks to improve the roster around LeBron James. And it's going to be interesting if there is a move out there that can get them Jeremy Grant, Nunn, Horton-Tucker, 2027 first. Does that get you a player like Jeremy Grant? That's going to be interesting. What do you do with DeAndre Jordan What do you do with Rajon Rondo? Do you look to move either player? Do you waive them? Do you open up roster spots? That's going to be the next big thing. It's going to be those fringe moves. Stanley Johnson on a hardship exception, a name that guy started last night in Houston. Can you move those? They still have, I think, 7 second-round picks. You've got cash to move in deals. There's a lot of different fringe moves that the Lakers could do. It's not always about hitting home runs in there. It's just kind of get your guys back healthy. You know, we saw Malik Monk. We saw, certainly LeBron where he is right now. Get to kind of mid-March in one piece and then kind of see where you are. But it's all about what you do in the playoffs, and they are going to finish in the top 6. This is not a play-in team. So that's a little bit about the Lakers. We talked about Brooklyn, COVID, hardship exceptions, where we wrote about it yesterday with Mike Schmitz and Jonathan Gavoni, and it's like, we're kind of in this pause as far as from a trade standpoint. Teams are in survival mode. You think Miami's thinking about trades when you're basically trying to get 7 or 8 healthy players on the court? Do you think that, teams like, certainly Ben Simmons we've talked about, teams aren't hanging up the phone, but teams are just trying to get through right now each day as far as what they have from a health standpoint, and it's basically that hardship list of players. Instead of a trade list, teams are sleeping with a hardship list under their pillow. So that is my Wednesday video. I'm glad I'm doing one of these. I'm feeling great. My wife asked me if I was 100%, and I said to her, who in this world is ever 100%? I'm probably about 85, 90% as far as how I feel right now. So have a great Wednesday. We've got a bunch of games. We've got college football coming up. As I said, everyone is just kind of in this survival mode, and we're in this day-to-day world.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.